Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Breazeale. Keys to victory. First of all, Breazeale. The key for him is to apply educated pressure. He can't come out in the first round all guns blazing because he's the much slower fighter. Slower hands, slower feet, slower reflexes. And historically, if we look back at his career, he's been very easy to hit. So the more punches he throws, the more chances he takes, particularly early, the more vulnerable he's going to be to getting countered by Deontay Wilder's big right hand. And he don't want that because it could be an early night. So he needs to pressure Deontay Wilder. Why? Because Wilder is so much quicker and more formidable at long range. So Breazeale can't allow himself to stand in the middle of the ring with Wilder and not move forward because Wilder will just pick him off with pot shots and eventually take him out. So he needs to get up close against Deontay Wilder, get him on the ropes, get him in the corners. It's easier said than done, of course. So he's going to need to keep an extremely tight guard, a much tighter guard than we've ever seen from him before. He's going to need to be patient because Breazeale is a warrior. I'm sure he is angry at Deontay Wilder because of the beef they had a couple years back and the stuff that Wilder's been saying about him. But he needs to keep all of that under wraps. He needs to be disciplined. He needs to be patient and pick his punches very carefully, particularly in the early rounds because of that speed differential between the two. A basic template that Dominic Breazeale could follow for fighting Deontay Wilder is what Johann Duopa did against Wilder. Why do I say that? Well, because Duopa and Breazeale have got similar styles. Duopa is a little shorter than Breazeale, a little more athletic, more head movement from Duopa, slightly faster hands, faster feet, and Duopa also keeps his chin super glued to his chest. These are things Dominic Breazeale should be looking to emulate. Keep that chin on your chest. Duopa had an extremely tight crab-like defense, and he actually had a lot of success walking Wilder down with his left jab. Wilder's eye, you can see, was swollen there from Duopa's left jab. So, in my view, it's this kind of game plan that Dominic Breazeale should be looking to emulate. Very, very tight guard. Don't let any power shots go until you've got Wilder at close range, either with his back to the ropes or in a corner. If you try and exchange power shots or throw power shots against Wilder when you're too far out, you're going to miss and you're going to get clipped. So Dominic Breazeale needs to fight a very patient, disciplined fight. Yeah, Wilder's going to hit you with shots on your forehead. He's going to hit you with shots on your shoulders if your chin's super glued to your chest. You should be able to take those. Don't get too angry. Your time will come. Keep touching him with a jab and be careful to bring that jab right back to the side of your head after you've thrown it because you don't want to get countered. So basically, Breazeale needs to stick to the basics. Yeah? Stick to the basics. Don't try to do too much too early and gradually, slowly but surely try and frustrate Deontay Wilder because Wilder is a very emotional character, as we all know. And if you can get him out of his cool-headedness, because against people like Luis Ortiz and even Gerald Washington, Deontay Wilder showed a lot of patience himself. He was quite cool-headed up until the point he hurt those guys. You don't want Wilder to be cool-headed like that. You want to be applying pressure and making him aggressive. You want to draw his sting, basically. And once you draw his sting, you want to be blocking the shots that are coming at you and then countering with clean jabs. You see, this will frustrate Deontay Wilder. This will probably make him become more and more reckless and have to expend more and more energy trying to keep you off of him. And once Breazeale gets Wilder on the ropes and in the corners, he needs to try and land whatever headshots he can, whatever body shots he can, and of course lean that bulk on Deontay Wilder because he's going to be the much heavier man in the ring. So those are the keys to victory for me, for Dominic Breazeale. If he fights the way that he has fought for most of his career and leaves himself as open as he did, for example, in the Anthony Joshua fight, the Izu Agono fight, etc., there's a very good chance that Breazeale will get knocked out early. So he needs to, and hopefully he will, with a the help of Breazeale Hunter, he needs to keep a much tighter defense than we've seen from him before, be far more sensible and patient than we've seen before, and maybe he could make it competitive. Possibly, because it's heavyweight boxing, maybe even spring the upset. I personally wouldn't bet on it. I think Wilder's going to win this one. And let me now tell you the keys to victory for Deontay Wilder. Now, as I've just alluded to, Wilder is a very aggressive, emotional fighter, and he needs to keep that in check. He needs to box a cool, calm, and collected fight. Dominic Breazeale and him have got a beef, and even though Wilder didn't necessarily have a beef with Tyson Fury, he had something to prove in the Fury fight. And that was the first time that I've seen Deontay Wilder completely gassed out by the end of a fight was against Tyson Fury. And that's because Wilder was wasting so many punches. Fury, of course, far better defensively than someone like Dominic Breazeale. So it's unlikely that Deontay Wilder would be missing as often against Breazeale as he was against Fury. So we probably won't see Deontay Wilder get as tired as he was in that fight. But even still, he should try and pick his punches and use his superior athleticism and speed to his advantage. Keep the fight in the middle of the ring. Use angles. Don't let Dominic Breazeale walk him back to the ropes. Watch out for Breazeale's jab. Try and counter him over the jab where he can. Also, I heard Deontay Wilder, actually it was his trainer Mark Breland, talk about going to Dominic Breazeale's body. I personally think that's a good strategy. Now, with some fighters, you want to be careful when going to their body because you don't want to get countered over the top. I don't think Wilder has to worry too much about that, at least not in the early rounds against Dominic Breazeale, because Breazeale is so slow. The speed gap between these two is vast. And if you watch this fight here, Breazeale against Ogono was going to Breazeale's body early in the first couple rounds, and that caused Breazeale to start dropping his hands. He was actually wincing from some of the body shots, dropping his hands, and Ogono was then able to come upstairs and land big shots on Dominic Breazeale's head successfully. Deontay Wilder can do the same. He can go to the body of Breazeale with the jab and also with the right hand, get Breazeale to drop his hands, and then come over the top with the right. Now, Breazeale himself likes to do that. He did that in this fight here against Ogono. He likes to go to your body consistently with the right hand, and then when you get used to him hitting you in the body because you're bringing your left arm down like Ogono did to try and block the body shot, then he comes through with a right hook to the head. He likes to do that himself. I think it will be a lot more difficult against somebody like Deontay Wilder, and I think it will be a lot more dangerous against Deontay Wilder throwing that particular punch because Wilder is a much bigger puncher than Ogono. Wilder is taller. Ogono's very mobile, very athletic himself, but Wilder's a tall guy who can throw a tremendous right hand from halfway across the ring. Another thing Wilder needs to be careful of when going to the body is not to hit Dominic Breazeale's elbow or his hip, because Wilder's had hand trouble in the past. He's broken his hand numerous times. He's even hurt his bicep, and I think he said he broke his arm in one fight. So he's going to need to be careful about placing his shots precisely. He can't afford to have any injuries to his money punch in this fight, because if he does, he could be in trouble. Dominic Breazeale's name is Trouble, his nickname, and he could be in trouble if he injures his hand again. We saw him injure his hand against Chris Arreola, but Dominic Breazeale is younger, fresher, etc. than Chris Arreola was at the time. And if he smells blood, he is going to go for Deontay Wilder like a man possessed. So Wilder needs to be careful, pick his shots, use his superior speed and athleticism, but go into the body, I do think, is a good strategy, which will open Dominic Breazeale up to the head. Look, Dominic Breazeale is not a defensively gifted fighter. It should be fairly easy for Deontay Wilder to pick holes in Breazeale's defense, unless Breazeale Hunter has worked some miracles with Dominic Breazeale. And hey, you never know. Breazeale's been getting very good sparring with the likes of Tony Yoka, which is, very good preparation. Perhaps he's improved technically. If he has, and if he can replicate the same kind of game plan as Johan Duopa against Deontay Wilder, then we might be in for a decent fight. But as I say, Wilder, even if Breazeale did replicate what Duopa did, I don't think he can do it as well as Duopa. I think Duopa got better head movement. If you watch this sequence, Duopa's moving his head. Breazeale can't move his head like that. Duopa's got faster feet and faster hands than Breazeale. The only advantages I would give Breazeale over Duopa are probably physical strength, size. He's a couple inches taller, and he's probably more heavy-handed than Duopa. But other than that, I would say Duopa's better in most departments than Dominic Breazeale. And he didn't have enough to beat Deontay Wilder. And this was Wilder a few years ago. You know, Wilder did get his eyes swollen up, but he eventually stopped Duopa. I believe it was in the 11th round. And because Duopa keeps his chin super glued to his chest, you can see his nose there. He was getting hit on the forehead and on the nose bridge rather than in the mouth and on the chin more often than not. Against Dominic Breazeale, Breazeale tends to keep his head far too high up. His chin's up in the air far more so than Duopa. He's going to need to rectify that, or he's going to be kissing the canvas sooner rather than later. So those are my keys to victory for Deontay Wilder and Dominic Breazeale. Wilder just needs to keep his cool, go to the body, bring Breazeale's hands down, and go in with a right hand over the head. Don't waste punches. Keep calm, and go through the motions, and he should be able to retain his WBC World Heavyweight title. Whereas Breazeale, apply educated pressure. Don't get too ambitious too early with your punch volume. Pick your shots carefully. Apply pressure with your feet. Get in the right positions. Get the guy on the ropes or in the corners. Then let your hands go. Because Deontay Wilder needs space to let his right hand off. So close down the distance before you punch. And try and wear Deontay Wilder down. Frustrate him. And take him into the later rounds. One thing, though, that Deontay Wilder does have to be careful of, and this is on the Wilder side of the keys to victory, is when you're going in for the finish against Dominic Breazeale, he does sometimes throw sneaky shots that can catch you by surprise or even hurt you. He did it in the Anthony Joshua fight. Joshua hurt Dominic Breazeale in the second round. Joshua kind of went at him, and Breazeale was able to get off some hooks and uppercuts and bloodied Anthony Joshua's nose. The same thing happened when Dominic Breazeale fought Izu Ogono. Ogono was lighting Breazeale up like a Christmas tree, but he got a little too over-eager, and he walked into a Dominic Breazeale, I think it was a right hand or an uppercut. So Breazeale can be dangerous when you back him up. He can come out with these sneaky little shots that you're not expecting. So Wilder needs to watch out for that. But other than that, those are my keys to victory. Dominic Breazeale is a tough guy, got a lot of heart, but he has been down on numerous occasions. He certainly doesn't have a bad chin, but his chin is far from concrete either. He was down against Amir Mansour heavily. He was down against Anthony Joshua in the 7th twice, and he was also hurt in the second round. He was down against Izu Ogono, and he was also hurt multiple times, so he can be dropped. If the likes of Ogono, Mansour, and Joshua are dropping him, and all these guys can punch, I have to imagine that Deontay Wilder will also be able to drop him if he lands clean. So, Breazeale, it's imperative for him to keep that chin super glued to his chest. Right? Don't allow Deontay Wilder to start detonating right hands on his chin. Keep it super glued to his chest. But for Wilder, as I say, if Breazeale fights the way he normally does, and we don't see some marked improvements in Breazeale's defense and strategy, then Wilder could have an early night here. We really need to see a lot of defensive improvements from Breazeale for this fight to go any length. And when I say defensive improvements, I'm not talking about shoulder rolls. I'm just talking about a tighter guard and being more careful about when he decides to punch. Yeah, apply pressure with the feet, but only punch when you've closed down the distance sufficiently and maybe you've got Wilder in a corner or on the ropes. Don't punch in the middle of the ring, at least not with power shots. Maybe jabs, but avoid exchanges in the middle of the ring, particularly early when Wilder is fresh. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this fight, my keys to victory. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. The general consensus. In fact, let me have a look at the poll that I did on my channel here. The general consensus is that Wilder wins by KO. Most of you guys, 66% of you have picked Wilder by KO. 25% have picked Breazeale by KO. 3% Wilder on points, 5% Breazeale on points, and 1% draw or technical decision. And that was out of just over 3,000 people voting. Interestingly, there's more people picking Breazeale on points than Wilder on points. That is strange, I would say. The overwhelming majority of people, though, Deontay Wilder by KO. And I can't really argue with that. I can see why. Breazeale's very hittable. And, you know, I've seen some people say if Duopa can go 11 with Deontay Wilder and Breazeale's got similar attributes, then why can't Breazeale do the same? Well, that was several years ago, for one. And as I've already pointed out in the video, Duopa, look at this highlight video on Premier Boxing Champions, and you will see just from this highlight video, which is 3 minutes long, Duopa's rolling with punches. Duopa's keeping his chin super glued to his chest. Duopa has got faster hands and faster feet than Dominic Breazeale. And it's not to say Duopa's a fast fighter, he's not. But trust me, you go watch Breazeale when he fights Agono. Look at his hand speed and his foot speed and compare it to Duopa's hand speed and foot speed against Wilder. I'm telling you now, Duopa's much faster. And his guard is much tighter than you normally see Dominic Breazeale's guard. So Breazeale is going to need to make some improvements with that guard and with keeping his chin down if he's going to last as long as Johan Duopa did. Those are my thoughts. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.